This is the Conrad Alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
Oh, for 5 years. 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Telegram, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim, and today is February 2nd, Groundhog Day 2023, and this is episode 246 of the Workshop Podcast. So how the hell is everyone? I see Hunter over on Twitch. I see Chris Dixon over on YouTube. Good to have you folks. We're going to get a couple of announcements out of the way, and then I'm going to bring on my fellow discussers, I guess. Yeah, I got Nate and John Palmer sitting around in the background. I'll bring them on in a sec. Couple of quick things. You guys heard me mention that it is Groundhog Day. So that means that it is time for the Workshop third annual Groundhog Day giveaway. 5 incredible prizes. So go to toolmantim.co and sign up there. It doesn't cost anything. You don't actually have to do anything to enter. There's ways to earn bonus entries, but it is there. So go by, check it out. You can check out on YouTube and TikTok as well for the 1-minute video to show you what the prizes are. And there is that. Next Saturday, this is kind of weird, but you know how Groundhog Day just keeps repeating? Well, next Saturday, we are going to do our Groundhog Day movie watch party. So we're going to watch that Bill Murray classic, and we're going to sit around and pretend like we are Mystery Science Theater 3000 and make some riffs on the movie. And finally, speaking of movies, next Thursday, Cam and Colby from the Casual Preppers podcast are going to be back. It's going to be quite a bit of fun. They're coming on to talk about the best movie of all time, Signs. We're going to have, I haven't figured out all the logistics yet. I got to figure out how we're going to do this. The plan is for us to watch it live and discuss it as we go along. We're going to pull out some of the prepper lessons, all that kind of stuff. But anytime Cam and Colby come by, I'm sure we'll hear a fake Russian accent once or twice and maybe a couple of jokes. We'll have a good time. So with that, let's bring on Brother John and Brother Nate. How are you, folks? Oh, Nate's muted. There we are. Hi, John Palmer. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm actually driving around my yard here trying to find a place to park 2 28-foot trailers.
Nice. Hey, and I'm just going to shout out, we got Liberty Late Night over on Twitch as well. So good to have you. I got to meet up with them again in one of these nights and get on their show. We've been talking about it, but I just haven't made time to do it. So, and in case anybody's wondering, Nate, you're a little bit under the weather, brother?
Yeah, I got a cold. I'm fighting, so voice is shot. I'm all
here.
Stuffed up, so it is what it is.
No worries. We got Byron over on YouTube, and we got Mike from Snail Creek Homestead. Good to have you. So this evening, I cannot believe we've made it this far. I was thinking back there, Nate, the other day. Was it when I was on vacation, or maybe it was just before? So it's coming up almost on a year when you messaged me and you're like, hey, Chris is doing a live stream, and you got me kind of hooked in. You mentioned me a couple times. Then we got Angry American on the show, and then that all came about, and we're like, hey, let's do a book club.
Yeah, I think we had the book club going.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And then I saw Chris, like we had just started reading the book, and we hadn't had any plans yet to do the actual streams.
That's right. Yeah. And here we are. We've made it through book 8 and only missed 1 month over a 9-month period. I think that's pretty damn good.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Considered, you know.
Yeah, that was a fun episode having Chris on.
It was. I got to have it. When we find out about when book 12's coming out soon, I'd like to have him back. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I got to go find book 11 on audiobook so I can at least get that one read. Oh,
yeah. And for those who, Byron wants to know what I'm drinking tonight. It is George Remus bourbon in the form of an old fashioned. I know that's hard to believe. And I know Chris Dixon isn't a big fan of the George Remus stuff, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. I got water.
Good for you. Hunter said he thinks he saw book 12 on pre-order.
Okay, cool.
And for those who are William Fortune fans from 1 Second After, he was on the Glenn Beck show today. So if anybody watches Glenn Beck, That'll be a good. Hunter said no. That was 1 second after. That's okay. But yeah, Clark said, "Holy crap, an old fashioned." So I actually was on the ball this month, and I ended up reading Going Home, book 8, which is okay. First off, let me get this out of the way. Up until book 8, every book was Going Home. I don't even, everything home was the second name.
Yeah.
And then he goes and ruins the goddamn cycle or pattern. And book 8 is Home Invasion.
Yeah, messes with my OCD badly.
Oh. And I'm just, it would have been so easy just to call it Invading Home, right?
Yeah. I'm glad I wasn't the only one that noticed that.
Oh, it drives me crazy. And then turns out I didn't realize this till I was looking tonight, but book 10 also ruins the pattern. So if it were me, I'd go back and do a George Lucas and change the old, Han shot first, and do a little revisionist history and change the title to Invading Home and whatever the other one was. So, and Byron says George Remus is good. I've enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure it was Dixon that said he didn't like it. And Haas is drinking a fruit smoothie tonight. So this was, I don't know if it was the shortest book, but it's pretty short. According to, what were you going to say?
9 hours and 42 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
I almost got it done in a day.
I think I pretty much did too. And I didn't even have it on super speed.
Yeah.
228 pages according to Kindle as well, for anybody who happens to read the books, which none of us seem to because we're all busy and doing shit. So, but Yozik wants to know if it started. Yes, it did start, but you're more than welcome to join as well if you want. The link is in the, and if anybody is interested, we have a special Telegram group just for the book club. And if you're up for it, join the regular Telegram group and I'll give you the link to come across.
Yeah, and I posted a article in there, like a how-to that we'll discuss later.
Yes. Do you want me to share that? I can post that
if you want, and then we'll get to it when we get to that part of the book.
So why don't you want to start, Nate? I know your voice is a little strained, but what were your thoughts overall of this chapter of the saga?
To me, it seemed like another kind of filler book.
We're all saying the same thing. Hunter said the exact. I agree. Yeah, keep going. Sorry, man. Cut you off.
It was a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of, you could tell this is going to happen. And it's like me going through it the second time. It's like, did I miss certain spots of the book? Like I messaged you a couple times. I'm listening to it. I'm like, I remember this happening in this book, but I'm not there yet.
And it was, I mean, I hate to use the term filler, but it really did feel like half this book could have been slapped into the previous book and the other half into the next book,
Oh yeah.
Or it could, I almost think, and I want to talk about it at the end, the ending of this book, it almost feels like he had a really good hook for an end of a story. And he's like, well, let's write a story that fills that in,
Yeah.
It's like in his mind, he knew how the ending of this was. The line's really good that it starts with, but it's a hard. I gotta say, I think it's probably my least favorite of the 8 books so far.
Yeah, it was almost boring to me.
Yep, there were some fun parts, but there wasn't even the other one. I always talk about. I think it's like book 3, maybe. There was still a lot of world building and relationship building and stuff,
Yep.
And in this one, there was a bit, I really like the cobbler. Is that what we're going to call him? Hey, yo, how are you? Oh, man. That glare on that bald head. Holy shit. I think this is your first appearance on the book club, isn't it?
It's the first one in video, yeah.
Right on. Good to have you. Oh,
hey, you guys can say boring all you want, but I'm just glad that it wasn't a video book or a show or something, at least during the whole part with when Sarge was bending over and spreading his cheeks. That's a scary thought.
That was a guy thing, though. I mean, maybe,
That's definitely a military thing.
Is it? Why don't you talk about that, yo? You've got you can share a little. You've got a little military experience, don't you?
Just a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it's sophomoric stuff. You know, if you're in college or out on the oil field, I'm sure stuff like that happen all the time.
Yeah, there were times, and I think back to high school, the stupid shit we used to do, you know, and it's not, you know, it's not exclusive to one field. I love, one of my favorite comedies of all time is that movie Waiting with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I mean, that's the restaurant industry, and they play the game where they try to get each other to look at each other's ball sacks. So,
yep.
See, I guess I just missed out on so much. I tried to go into the military at the time that I tried to go in. The only ones that would take me was the Army and the Navy, and I didn't want to go in either one of those. I wanted to go in the Air Force, but they wouldn't take me because I didn't have an actual diploma. I had a GED, and they were being really picky at the time, and so I missed out on that, and I just, my life went a whole different direction. But also skipped like 2.5 years of high school by just dropping out and getting my GED in the 10th grade. So there was a lot of stuff I missed out on, I guess, on all that.
I did the same
field
thing.
of stuff.
What's that, yo?
I did the same thing. I dropped out in 9th grade.
Okay. And did you get a GED and then go to the military?
GED, then I went to EMT school and certified nurse assistant school, and then I joined the Army for electronics.
Okay. I was going to share a story before I forget, talking about stupid things and workplaces. So I've told this. I worked at Dairy Queen when I first graduated from university, and we had to wear black dress pants. And the girls, we used to make the cakes from scratch there. So you guys ever had an ice cream cake from Dairy Queen? And the inside of it has like that cookie crumble that's mixed with hot fudge. Well, we would mix that by hand. So you'd get the hot fudge and the cookie crumble, and you'd put latex gloves on, mix it all together. And then when you take the gloves off, it would leave that nasty powder on your hands. So every week the girls would do that, and then they would try to sneak up behind the guys and slap you on the ass. So you had to walk with white handprints on your ass cheeks all afternoon. So that was, just stupid stuff we do. What do we got here? Oh, Nate just shared a picture. Oh, is that an antenna tuner you sent me, Nate, or what all is that?
No, that's the ham radio setup.
Okay.
We'll get there, and I can kind of show people what they're talking about when we get there. So,
Chris just said, check that link, Tim. I wonder, I'm sure I shared. Yeah, I shared. So we shared a link that goes to an antenna build, guys. In case you're wondering, it is part of the discussion in a little while. So somebody might think we're losing it or something, but let's start with this. Chris Dixon said this was the book of Dalton. We learned so much about him.
I would agree with that. That's probably the best takeaway from this book.
And that's what made it not my least favorite book, because he's my favorite character.
How can you not love Dalton? So what do you think? We might as well talk about it if we're learning about Dalton. The guy who was fully engulfed, hey?
Yeah.
Anybody have any opinions on that? What do you think, Nate?
I want to say I would probably do the same. I mean, it sucked when it happened, because it's like, I could, see that being a problem. But I get his point. You don't want people suffering. And there's nothing you can do. Take them out. I mean, don't let them suffer.
I want to say it felt like maybe the only time that we saw the quote unquote softer side of Dalton, because when they were all giving him shit and whatever. And then Sarge asked him like, why? Yeah. Hunter says mercy killing is a thing. And Dalton, he was abundantly clear about the fact that if it were him fully engulfed, he'd want the guys to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that?
Well, if you do,
go ahead, John.
If you do it for the enemy in the book where they took out the DHS, why wouldn't you do it for, your friends just the same, and even, faster, I guess.
That's a good point. I never thought of it. I mean, I had no problem with it. I thought he made the right decision, but I like how we've talked in the past about, if it's okay for Sarge to torture people, is it okay for the bad guys to torture? But in this case, if it's okay to put people out of their misery who's the enemy, then wouldn't it be the right move to do that for your comrades too? What do you think, yo?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a hard thing to do for anyone, but considering the circumstances medically, uh, they don't have the facilities to treat a person with 100% burns. I mean, that's one of the most painful things that I've ever heard of people dealing with is having 100% burns.
Yeah.
I mean, they put them into a coma because it's too much pain for the body to handle.
I mean, even in the best case, I mean, I hate to say best case, but even in a modern facility with power and the grid up, and I mean, it's hit or miss what happens. And even if you do, like you said, it's months long recovery, and then the rest of your life, well, I don't know how long it would take to recover in the best of conditions.
Right.
And
You're probably a year down the road.
Right. And I mean, this is going to sound bad too, but again, you've got a resource allotment scenario as well on top of all the rest of it.
Right.
And then the other thing was the fact that if they went back for the guy, there was a really good chance that they would have got blown up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was tough. You know what I mean? So, well, let's start out the book. If I took my notes correctly, the book started out with Morgan still struggling over the issue of the judge, because we had fat old Porky. I can say that because I'm also one of those. Maybe not Porky, but sorry guys. And they're trying to decide who the judge is going to be. So what do you think? Can anybody remember the name of the guy that they decided to pick as judge?
Martin?
Mitch. What is it?
Yes,
Mitch and Michelle.
Yeah.
It's such a plain name, right?
Yeah.
And
I thought it was kind of funny that the names are both kind of close to each other, Mitch and Michelle.
Yeah, Eminem.
Yeah. It's hard because they're just very generic, plain, short. I mean, I guess they're 1 and 2 syllable words, but they're hard to remember.
Yeah.
I'm just going to shout out to Cold War Prepper. He's in here. He just said DHS did a lot of torturing as well. And he's not wrong, so it kind of balanced out.
Yep.
This was one of those books that played kind of loose with the morals again, where the main characters made a rash decision. And then after the fact, it was smoothed over based on information they didn't know before. You know how we've talked about that before, Nate?
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll get to that too. But so what do you guys think of Mitch as the judge?
Seemed like a pretty solid guy. Has his head on straight, willing to work things out. I liked him.
I think so. I love.
Yeah, I thought he was a good choice.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty solid kind of dude. And don't they live in the house that Morgan went to look at one time too?
Yeah, that was brought up a couple times.
It sounded like a pretty cool house, wasn't it? Like a below ground or below grade kind of one?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. All right, Nate. Oh, okay. I just seen that. You sent about the weather decoding too, Nate?
Yep.
So this is a good one. I did think of this, but never thought to write it in my notes. Chris said, did anyone else vision Boss Hogg from Dukes of Hazzard when Porky came up?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I even picture him in the stupid white suit, that Boss always wore.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the first person I thought about when I heard Porky. He just brings that persona on.
And if I had to bet, I could almost bet that he based that character on Boss Hogg.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he just makes me so mad. Porky does. And I know that's the design of the episode or of the character, but my God. Let's talk about Porky since we're at that. We're going to jump all around tonight, but it's a short book, so we can do what we want. It's our show, so we can choose, right? But
exactly.
I want to hear your opinion about how maybe you can summarize it if you want, but how the fight with Porky ended up, how Porky met his fate.
I think it went a little bit too long. I definitely think he should have got rid of Porky a long time ago when they're already amassing guns and putting up, essentially a think of the word, a campaign against him as sheriff. It went too far. They should have taken care of it, and Porky didn't really have a place in the story to start with. So,
do you think? Okay, because Morgan has to have, I mean, Morgan's the sheriff, and he really needs to keep himself morally. I know this is tough for him, and I know Chris writes it the way he does, but honestly, the entire rundown with Porky at the end, it almost felt like Morgan, I know they put a gun to him or said, we're not asking, we're telling, but wasn't there a few occasions where it felt like Morgan could have possibly handled it slightly different? Does anybody have an opinion on that, or do you think I'm wrong?
I mean, he didn't really want to deal with Porky when all that stuff went down, and I think that's why he took the guns away from him.
Mm-hmm.
Which totally makes sense. I mean, the guy's just a dick to begin with, and hearing that he's plotting to take over the town, and that's why he wants the judgeship. You know, once you actually get further into the book, towards the end, I mean, I don't know how he stayed breathing that long, to be honest.
Well, that's what I kind of wondered. It was tough because, I mean, he was an absolute asshole. There's no getting around it. The dude was what he was. I don't know.
Especially after the barbecue, the pizza party. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm surprised he lived after that.
Yeah, I would have shot him.
I'm actually surprised they didn't. And wasn't it mainly just because there was basically a lot of witnesses?
Everyone was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they took that cur out a long time before he did.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised that Dalton didn't just, I don't know, sneak over one evening and take care of business, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, Dalton, Mike, whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Ted, yeah, any of them. They're all that type of thing, you know? Here, Chris says he was allowed to build a base and never be dealt with until it escalated. They dealt more swiftly with other characters.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it was. And he's not wrong. And Hunter says he thinks he was kept alive as an example.
Yeah, and I think it was more for him to set up book 9 to have that whole thing with Porky at the end and his guys. That's
true. Because it created, was this the second or third time Morgan was shot?
Second.
Okay. Yeah. Cause he, obviously in the head, and then this time was it in the lung? Is that what it was?
Yeah. I think he was longer side.
It was in his side, I think.
Was it
the armor?
Man, he's a tough cookie.
It's still a sucking chest wound, so you can't breathe anyway.
What was I going to say about that?
Yeah, it was the third time. I was trying to say that I was muted because remember the second time was when Leanne got shot when they got when those guys working with the DHS came in, then they shot him the second time. So this was the third time.
The second time hit his body armor though, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
But I mean,
that's I'm not.
That's still gonna suck.
Yeah. Anyone in here or in the comments ever get shot in body armor by chance? You ever have any? Yozik? Probably not. Hey.
No.
I know it's not a very.
If it's a rifle round, most body armor is not going to stop it in the first place.
No.
So.
That's what I kind of wondered about that. It basically, I mean, yeah, up close handgun rounds and maybe light rifle rounds, perhaps.
Yeah, or at distance.
Hunter says without.
It burns. Oh boy, we got to get Hunter on the show some night.
I was gonna say I've been kicked by a horse, and so I'm thinking taking around with body armor is probably something like that.
I can't imagine getting kicked by a horse. Oh my god,
it's not fun.
You don't want to. It sucks.
No doubt. Oh my god. So So what was it? A little 38 special? That was it a 38
32.
or what was
32.
it? 32. That's it. Yeah. So it was a tiny little round too. Hey.
I mean, I still wouldn't want to get shot with it, but
well, fuck no. So true.
It's like getting shot with 22. You still don't want to get it.
No, I would. Yeah. I remember a few years ago, there was this craze where people were getting shot in the shoulder. It was like body modification,
Yeah.
And they had this guy they would go to that had everything, as clinical as could be. And then he would take them and drop them off at the hospital. I'm just like, I don't know. I think you're insane. So
that sounds like a Tide Pod challenge thing or milk crate challenge thing to me. It's like, how stupid do you have to be?
Well, there was that guy and the girlfriend that were doing TikTok challenges that she shot him in the chest when he had a phone book in front of him.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I mean, it would have been just so simple to buy 2 phone books or get 2 phone books and shoot one first on the ground to make sure it didn't go through, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid.
Process.
But it's like people who shoot themselves in the foot with steel-toed boots to see if it'll go through. It's like, did you ever think to take your foot out of the boot first?
No.
Yeah.
Hey, you ain't got no nuts if you don't do it, the dangerous way, do you? Right?
That is true. You're probably right. Although nowadays you could probably just say it anyway. We'll leave that alone. So Hunter says,
I'd rather have no nuts than no brains. How about that?
That's true. And he was telling in his head that Porky was, oh, right. Yeah, he's not wrong. So he said he was telling in his head that Porky was too close. I thought the same thing the first time I heard that story because he had him, what is it, one hand with the handcuffs, was it?
Yep.
And then pulled him in close, and that was the end of it, right?
Well, as soon as he said, "I can't get the second hand cuffed," oh, this isn't gonna go good.
No. The first thing that you should learn in law enforcement is get them restrained now.
Because I've seen, I used to watch Cops a lot, and they would subdue rather large characters, and they would just grab a second set of cuffs, typically, wouldn't they? And cuff one cuff to the other. Is that normal?
Yeah, that's what they generally do. Yeah.
Pairs.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that law enforcement officers don't screw up, because if you don't think that happens on the regular, there's a channel out there called Active Self-Protection, and they've got Active Self-Protection Extra, and I can't remember which channel it is, but on one of them, 3 days a week, the host and a former federal agent that works for him now, they go through badge cam and dash cam stuff, and they talk about the things that were done right and wrong on not just the police part, but also on the citizens part. And they don't hold back when an officer or group of officers messes up. And these guys are pretty much pro law enforcement, obviously, but when they mess up, they call them out.
I like that channel. Anybody else ever watch that Active Self-Defense or Active Self-Protection? No, they're good.
That's Active Self-Protection ASP.
That's it. Yeah. He's, the guy is what he is, but I mean, you can't deny the fact that he breaks down a lot of like lethal, not necessarily lethal force, but encounters, and just shows what went wrong,
self-defense encounters. Yeah,
that's what it is. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so we heard biltong. I think isn't this the second time they talked about biltong in this book?
Yep.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah.
I think he mentioned it in 2 or 3.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
Have any of you guys
every
ever
time they
biltong?
think no, but I've thought about it, and every time that they talk about it, I think about Jack and the video he put out teaching how to do it, like in detail. So,
well, he had, what was it? It was a separate podcast or something, biltong for breakfast for a while. You guys remember that? No,
there was something, but yeah, I can't remember where he had somebody else that was doing it with him or something. I cannot remember the context. It didn't last very long.
Well, all the doctors in my town are all from South Africa, and they love biltong. I hear them talk about it all the time, but I've never got off my ass to make it. So I don't know. Maybe that'll be something this year, because it sounds really tasty.
Yeah, and I wish I missed the opportunity, because I have a cousin that she's quite a bit older than me, probably like about 7-8 years. And she was married to a guy that was quite a bit older than her that was from South Africa. And he absolutely looked like the younger brother of that guy off of Lethal Weapon, Joshua.
Okay.
Blonde and just freaking white, make me look, like a African American. He was so white, and I'm a white guy. But he knew so much about the way they did things over there, and just like the biltong and all that. But unfortunately, had a heart attack and died a few years ago, and I never really got the opportunity to, just pick his brain like I would have liked to.
I sent Aaron a recipe the other night for homemade English muffins, and I was flipping through they're all handwritten pages of recipes, and I found my grandmother's seafood chowder recipe in there. And I remember the day I decided to go get it from her. It was like 15 years ago, and she was getting pretty old then. She was 85 15 years ago. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put this on paper and learn, because there'll be a day. And sooner or later, she wasn't able to. She passed away this year. So, she was 100 when she passed away, but she couldn't make seafood chowder for probably the last 10 years. So I was at least glad I got that on paper so the whole family can share it someday,
Nice.
Boy, but Tim, that is another regret I have. I had a grandma and a grandpa that it's my mom's dad. He always had a garden, was a great gardener. He was just fabulous at it. And then his wife, my mom's mom, was always canning all the stuff. And I never spent enough time learning stuff from them. And they've been gone now for 20 years almost, but it just makes me sick to think about all the knowledge that I missed out on picking up just through those two people,
Absolutely, man. I mean, it was just because I did it the one time didn't mean there wasn't a whole lot I missed, because there were so many things, but I guess this kind of stuff would be good to know. But then to kind of segue back to it, what the hell was that blood globule thing that Sarge ate? Do you guys remember that?
Yeah,
Blood in a jar.
Yes. Oh my God. What did you think of that, Nate?
I've heard about that tribe, and it's, hey, whatever floats your boat, knock yourself out.
I was out, I forget where I was. I think I was at the daycare working that day, and I was listening to that, and I just let an audible groan right out. I was like, it's just a couple things I couldn't stomach, and that was one of them.
It reminds me.
Go ahead.
It reminds me of the places where they keep cows. They'll cut the cow and get blood out of them for protein, and then they milk them for the milk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's a Maasai tribe, I think.
Yeah,
so, that sounds right.
This is a cool one. Hunter just come up with a great idea. We've had a few book ideas in here, but he said, speaking of food, I wish they'd spent a bit more time talking about how Miss K and the ladies came up with food ideas. Then he mentions the idea of a going home cookbook. I think that's friggin' genius.
Well, you got to start off with the rabbit recipes for the apocalypse.
Right.
That's going to be in there.
And mush.
Go ahead. Yeah, mush. Has anybody ever had mush?
Yeah.
What is it, yo?
It's just usually it's like a soaked cornmeal, and then just turned into pancakes or whatever.
Okay.
At least how I've had it.
They add sugar or anything to it, or is it?
No, just cornmeal and maybe some spices, some salt. That's it.
So
you're saying it's not keto?
No.
Oh, Hunter says a little bit of honey sometimes, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Chris Dixon said, talking when he fed it to the dog, the blood, whatever the hell that was, said, I remember my uncle doing that when we were processing a moose. Probably the grossest thing I've ever watched. Oh, see, just gives me the chills. Oh, there's not much that grosses me out, but that's one of them for sure. And there we go. Man, we really should put this together. That Cold War Prepper says Thad's alligator stew, Morgan steam mush pancakes, Sarge's squirrel. There's all kinds of things. I think we should mention it to Chris.
Yeah, that'd be a
I
good
like
one.
that idea. And my guess is a lot of the shit that he put in there is either researched or more than likely stuff from his own experience, eh?
Oh yeah, probably.
Right. Now I haven't done the stick thing, but I do drop blood down. Like when I pull out raw meat, I'll drop some blood in a bowl for my dog. She loves it.
I remember the first time we ever dispatched pigs, and I made sure I used the 30-30 just because I'd always heard stories about the 22 bouncing off them, and there were two in the pen together, and dispatched the first one, and the second one come right over and started drinking what come out of it. So there's no there's no honor amongst pigs.
No.
22 will do the trick. You just got to hit them in that triangle.
It was my first time doing it, and I was scared I might pull the shot or something. So,
understandable for sure. I mean, you get nervous when you're first doing anything. It's
damn near deafened me, though. I'll tell you that. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I've shot lots of rifles and stuff, but it was just the fact that it was right close, and I don't know. It was funny. But what about Sarge's? So Sarge got that new driver. I think his name was Harris, maybe. You know how he's always busting. So what'd you guys think of that when he was busting his balls? It reminded me a bit of the guy from the engineer, you know, the electrical engineer.
Yep. Yeah, that was funny as shit, him busting his balls.
What is that a thing, yo?
Yeah, it's a thing.
Do you have any personal stories like that you remember? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of jobs have that. You know, you tell the guy to go out and get the blinker fluid, or you know, just different things like that, where you just harass the shit out of them until they finally get fed up with it. You know, and then once they do that, then they're one of the guys. So
there's something about that, isn't there? I hate to go down these rabbit holes sometimes, but we always seem to. But this latest generation, of course, is, well, anyway, everybody's a little scared to be offended. And I know there were times in the past when that kind of hazing got a little out of hand, but there was something to be said about some of it, at least, in kind of building the brotherhood, would you say?
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you, I don't know, anybody ever, I mean, in college we had Frosh Week, but I mean, I went to a Bible college, so it was pretty tame. You know, we played a game like where you had a baby diaper and they put Tootsie Rolls and chocolate syrup in it, and you had to fish the Tootsie Rolls out with your face, you know, like just stupid shit like that. So I don't know. I never had a problem with it. I'm sure there are people who have seen bad things, you know, but when I worked at Home Hardware, I've told this story before, but there was a lady that come up one time. She was new at the funeral home, and they sent her up for a cordless extension cord. And we sent her across the street to Canadian Tire, and she come back and she was pretty pissed at us. Oh man!
I almost never missed the opportunity to get one of my good friends. I try to never miss the opportunity to remind him of the fact that he was in the Navy, you know, as a Marine. So, and they love that when you tell them that, you know, hey, Navy boy, I was in the men's division, is what they'll usually say, or something like that, you know.
Yeah, Department of the Navy.
What is it? Is that what?
Department of the Navy signs the check for the Marines.
Yeah, they don't like being told that, you know. That
do the Marines just look at the Navy like they're soft or something? Is that the idea, or?
So generally, the Marines they look at the Navy as Uber for the Marines.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's kind of funny, actually.
They've got all kinds of things that they give them crap about. Like evidently in the Navy, they have their name on the back of their pants, and you can imagine, you know, some of the things that they come up with that give them crap about that, because in the Marines they don't do that.
So from either of you guys, any idea why they have their name on the back of their pants?
It's an identification thing when you're coming out behind guys in a tunnel. So if you're in an enclosed space, is that the idea? Yeah.
Okay, I just figured they had their head up their ass all the time. So
well, generally what I've heard is they got their name there so that way the guy in the back knows who he's, you know, who his boyfriend is at the time, if you get your drift.
We won't read that one out loud. We'll just, anybody who wants to read it on the video there from Hunter Kent, for sure.
It's also a laundry thing because you know, they're on a ship with 1,000 people, and so basically
6,000 people
are labeled like that. That way they make sure they get their stuff back.
That makes sense. Yeah. Oh,
That and some of those ships you're sharing they do hot bunking where you're literally sharing a bunk with another guy that, he gets out of bed and goes to work and then you come in and go to bed.
Yeah. 3 bunks high.
Oh my God. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it is what it is. But Chris Dixon said so you can figure out who's floating face down in the water. I added the face down part, but I'm sure that's what he meant. But then again, I mean, the Village People did sing in the Navy, didn't they? It wasn't in the Army and it wasn't in the Marines. It was in the Navy. I'm just saying, folks. And
well, the old adage, 1,000 guys go out on a ship and 500 couples come back. So.
Oh, dear. All right.
My dad was in the Navy, so I know all of the Navy jokes.
Yep, same here.
There was a throwaway line in the book that I absolutely loved. When they spied, remember the young Russian guys that get shot there and the girl gets mad. And they say, what is it with Russians in jogging suits?
Yes.
See, everybody thought that was funny, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's true. I mean, think about...
okay.
Oh, go ahead.
There's
John.
a reason cliches are cliches.
That's true. I mean, just because it's cliche doesn't mean it's not true, right? But I just wonder
Usually
why
means it is.
I guess part of it is they always, whenever you see a Russian, it's almost like they look like they're 20 years behind with the fashion trends, like those. I seen a video earlier today from the 90s, and this guy was wearing one of them tracksuits. It was like a windbreaker, and it had like purple and white, like that kind of thing. And I pictured him like, he looks like he just stepped out of modern day Russia.
Well, it was the president of Ukraine when he came over. He was just wearing sweats. Right.
Yeah. Well, I was picturing, the first John Wick and all the Russians in there. That's who I was picturing when I seen it. I was like, yeah, I don't know what it is with Russians and jogging suits, but I guess it's just their thing. I don't know. Maybe it's easy to get, or I don't know. So then let's talk about, I believe it was Jess. Was it Jess? And who ended up running off with Jess to go dispatch the pedophile?
Jess, Fred, and Leanne.
It was Leanne? Okay, I wasn't sure. Yeah. So, okay. I'm just going to say it. This is a trope or a cliche of some of Chris's work where the protagonist kills someone without having the full knowledge. And then after the fact, it's almost like, hey,
verified.
Yeah, verified after the fact, which in my mind doesn't necessarily make it right. I like to play devil's advocate here, but the dude was a piece of shit. We know that, and he was mouthing off to Jess, and he said, usually they don't come to me and that sort of thing.
Jess kind of addressed that when she said, oh God, I hope she's in there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I get it. And I don't know. Anybody have any opinions on that? I know I always get my balls busted for trying to play devil's advocate on these scenarios, but
no, you're right, and that they didn't have any proof at that point, and like he hadn't attacked them or anything, and we was talking about that channel earlier, and the host on there, he always says adults use words, so it doesn't matter what the other person says. You can't cross a line just because somebody said something you didn't like. So I thought about that too when I was listening through that part, but it's really kind of hard not to put that out of your head real quick when it gets 30 seconds later and they go back in there and find that chick. I mean,
well, when I took the course at Tactical Response the second day, they have a video of James Jagger talking about encounters and that sort of thing. And I'm paraphrasing, but basically his quote was, the only fight you win is the one you walk away from. And man, that stuck with me bad. Just simply because, like you said, if you do decide to use lethal force, no matter what, you've always got to live with it, if nothing else. And
it's not always a win.
What's that, yo?
It's not always a win.
Sure.
You got to deal with it.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, I'm just a lowly little Canadian who really, it's hard for me to have an opinion on it, but to me, it seems like that would fuck you up a little bit. even if you had to, even if you did it. But couple of opinions here from the crowd. Chris says Leanne seems to be getting way too comfortable with the trigger, and Hunter says Leanne is getting cold.
She's her daddy's girl.
Thank you. I was just going to say that.
I never thought of that. You're right. Why don't you expand on that there, John?
Well, I mean, you just look at how Morgan is through the whole thing. He's really quick at recognizing people that need to be killed and just getting it done, before it's able to be put into some kind of a discussion or dispute. Just get it done and get it over with and go on. And you don't like it, but sometimes it's got to be done. And she's just absolutely the way it seems. It's like a mini Morgan. So and it makes sense, because when kids grow up in a house, with parents, they typically have some of the attributes of their parents' attitudes.
You're not wrong. I agree. What do you think, Yo?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. She's all the kids. I mean, everybody has dealt with a lot in different ways, with different things happening to their family. So, you're definitely gonna get harsh, get that edge of hardness that you're either gonna do that or you're gonna become Mary and just completely break down.
It's a good point. And I gotta say, I'm 100% sure that Morgan would not still be alive if he wasn't as hard an individual as he is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he got soft with Porky, so
that's a good point. Yeah, good. Yeah, you're right. Because I always think back to, I always forget the guy's name. I want to call him $$ sign or dollar bill or
Gold Dollar.
Gold Dollar. That's it. He needed killing, and like Dixon says here, he says, "C. Morgan never said some people need killing." That was Sarge, wasn't it? But Sarge isn't wrong. But I think Morgan lives that phrase, because some people do need killing. And then, so let's jump ahead a little bit to the jail scene. What do you guys think of that? When Morgan shot, the guy's name was Rosa, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, he's another guy that lasted way too long. I mean, legit. And the fact that he went after Morgan in the jail, I mean, come on.
I do understand why he lasted longer, though, Nate, because Morgan was trying not to be the judge, and that he had already got to the point where he didn't want to be the judge anymore. And so that was the first case where he was really trying not to be the judge, even though he knew how it was going to turn out.
Yeah.
Look at John talking sense here. I never even thought of that, but you're right, brother. That's true, because he made it abundantly clear that he was really struggling with the idea of being judge, jury, and executioner all the time, right? And
I'm not that sensible, because once the guy admitted he freaking killed his girlfriend in a drunken stupor, bullet to the head, see you later.
I get it. I do. I totally. I'm not. So why was he in the jail and how did he end up in there? Because I thought they put him on the chain gang, didn't they? Or is that a different guy?
You got to bring him
back. That's
where
they were. Yeah, that's where they were keeping them when they weren't working on the chain, is in the jail. So,
okay, that makes sense then. I wondered how he ended up in there. And then when I liked the line when Thad said, "Look at it." Was it look at his hand or look at his finger or something? And Thad had broke it right sideways.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a harsh individual. I know I'm a lot harsher than a lot of people, but I believe anything that's deserving of life is deserving of death.
You want to expand on that a little?
If it's bad enough to keep the person in jail the rest of their life, and I even understand that in some ways that's more of a punishment to some people than to just put them out of their misery. But you're not just punishing that person, you're punishing everybody that's got to put out to keep that person fed and housed and guarded and everything else, you're putting an unnecessary kind of a hardship on the totality of society by not just going ahead and putting the person out of everybody else's misery, I guess, is the only way I know how to put it.
Well, do you guys ever see that? I think it's the ADX Supermax there in Colorado, the prison where they keep like the shoe bomber and the Boston Marathon bomber. And
yeah,
so
I watched a documentary on that.
Yeah, it's super intriguing, but apparently it's the only prison that has more guards than prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched a video last night. It was 10 or 15 minutes on El Chapo, and he, he was in prison twice and escaped twice. And then they brought him to the States. They extradited him and put him in this Supermax. And his wife, whom is like 30 and he's in his 60s, so there's a bit of an age gap there. She's been fighting for him to get better treatment. And of course, the comments in the YouTube video were simply like, he probably didn't concern himself with better treatment when he, executed this competition or, whatever. Because who knows how many hundreds of murders that he is, guilty of. So I don't know, because they talk about it. I mean, these guys are stuck in this 7x10 or 7x12 cell 23 hours a day. And if you're there for 3 years, you're finally allowed to spend that 1 hour talking to other people, but he's never going to be allowed to. So he's basically going to go crazy in there with a small little black and white television on a cement cot. And like some people said, sometimes there's a thing pretty fucking miserable to me.
I mean, they're probably worried about him running stuff from inside the jail.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
And
he would, I'm sure.
Me personally, fucking put him out. I mean, he's earned it.
Yeah, I was gonna make a joke and say, why does he deserve a friggin' black and white TV?
Oh, yeah. I agree. No, I do. And I thought it was kind of funny that, she was fighting for him to have better rights in the prison. And that's a tough one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not a U.S. citizen.
Right. Well, that's true too.
Or for that matter, why does he deserve oxygen?
What were we going to say, Yo?
There's a big difference between him and like Julian Assange, who's in even a worse conditions in jail right now in England for him putting out what's her name, the Manning.
Chelsea Manning.
Manning videos and whatnot. He's serving a worse sentence right now than Chapo is, and as far as I'm concerned, Chapo could disappear and no one's going to care.
I'm honestly surprised it hasn't happened. And you got a guy like Ross Ulbricht or whatever that founded the Silk Road on the dark web. And I mean he'll never see the light of day again. And can you tell me that his crimes are equal to what? Anyway, I know.
No.
You can get down this, every night, right? But
yeah.
And Haas says wasting food on El Chapo. You're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. So let's talk about. I ran out of bourbon, so I can't drink when I mention this. But so we're gonna discuss Mitch and his influx of weather information. You got it in you, Nate, to explain a little bit about how that worked and what that was.
All right, so Mitch comes up with the overhead, like the satellite imagery from all the hurricane or whatever's coming in, the tropical storm. That is a legit thing you can do. It's frequency is 137.5, and there are 6 satellites overhead that fly. There's three GOES satellites and 3 NOAA satellites.
What was I NOAA is the anyway, do you know what they stand for?
Well, it's national. Well, it's NOAA is national, whatever.
Oceanic, maybe.
Oceanic Observatory, something. I don't know exactly what it is.
Okay.
But GOES is kind of the same thing as GOES or GEOS maybe. GEOS, not 100% sure, but they're all kind of on the same frequency. And that
there we are.
Antenna that I threw in, there you go.
So Cold War says it's a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Admin.
Yep. So that PDF that Tim posted earlier is the antenna that you use, and that is a QHF antenna, and it looks like an egg beater kind of. And that's so when the satellites go over, they're actually rotating as they're moving ahead. And the way that thing is set up is to catch whatever orientation the satellite is in through the entire pass as it flies over your head. So you kind of see it looks like a blender.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so you said 137.5. So is that a certain meter? Like that's not 2 meters?
It's just below 2 meters in the ham bands. So the ham bands start at
140 something?
144 to 148 for 2 meters.
Okay. So this is the equivalent of making like a tape measure Yagi then, is it almost? Or maybe a little? Yep.
Yeah, okay. It's a little more difficult than that. But that's kind of the setup that you need. So as the satellite is flying over.
Oh, we might have lost you, Nate. Anybody? Oh, hang on.
Yep.
Here, I'll go ahead, Nate. As the satellite's flying over and then it cut out.
It's as it's flying over, it kind of rotates, and that's why that antenna is set up that way. Because if you have just a vertical antenna, as soon as that satellite goes horizontal instead of vertical,
okay,
you're not going to get the signal because it has to be on the same polarity for it to work in line of sight.
Oh, so that makes sense. So the fact that it's going back and forth, it's going to catch it at every angle then, isn't it, as it's tumbling?
Yeah, exactly. And then you would take that and hook it into like an RTL SDR or a New Elect SDR on your laptop.
Now slow down because you're speaking French now.
Okay, so that is basically a USB dongle.
Okay.
It's roughly about the size of this.
Okay.
This is just like a memory reader that I have, but they're real small. And you would take that antenna and run your coax to go into an SDR, like this little tiny USB dongle. And then you would bring it up on your computer and you would record the noise as it's going overhead. And you'd save it. And then you would use another program called WXTOIMG.
Okay.
It's weather to image. And that will decode the actual signal and give you the actual picture that it's sending.
And so you could do that 6 times a day then if you have 6 satellites? Or
every half hour.
Okay. Right, because they're going to go around. Yeah, okay.
So the normal pass for satellite, like its orbit, is 90 minutes.
Okay.
So every 90 minutes, that one satellite is going to keep coming around.
Oh,
but being cool. They have them offset from each other, you're going to have them coming in different ways.
That's really cool.
And then the other thing that's really cool, all right, so that is line of sight is how you do that.
Okay.
Now, you could take that image and you could use something called slow scan television on high frequency and send that image out to a friend of yours through HF. Which
is like what they do with the International Space Station, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So you could say you're on the East Coast and you got a buddy on the West Coast and he doesn't have 2 meter, 70 centimeter like line of sight set up, but he has HF.
Okay.
As that satellite comes over, you could get it on the East Coast and then slow scan television over high frequency towards California for your buddy to pick it up.
That's cool. So that's a way. And I'm going to guess, Chris Dixon says, can we get this put into Google Translate for the dummy? So are you telling me then that you could transfer any image using slow scan television on Geez.
Yep.
And then, of course, okay. And really, yeah, go ahead.
The space station does slow scan television once or twice a month. And I want to say it's 444.800
Okay.
is their frequency. And that you just need a kind of that. It's, well, you can do a vertical antenna because they're not orbiting or they're not
Right.
spinning as they move. They're stationary. And as it comes over, it'll make all this weird noise. And then it'll kind of do its thing.
So that noise is going to act a bit like, say, binary, for instance, or it's some sort of code. Okay.
Yep.
That is neat.
It's daytime. I could do SSTV, but 20 meters probably isn't that busy right now. I can see if anybody's sending me.
I think we should have you back on the show some night, Nate, and we should do this. I think this would be a lot of fun. I learned more from Nate about, yeah,
because I sent you that picture so you can see if you want to throw that picture up, Tim.
Okay.
You can kind of see the radios.
That was in the Telegram chat, right?
That was your between you and me. I just sent it to you.
Okay. Hang on here. Okay, let's see if we can stop screen. Give me a second here. We're going to see if we can bring up a picture here for you guys. Window. There we go. See if we can bring that up bigger. Whoops. There. Oh, hang on. It didn't get bigger for me. All right. Well, there's the picture anyway, guys. Let me see if I can hide the text. Yeah, it doesn't want to show the full screen for some reason. But so what were you going to say about this radio, Nate?
So the top radio that you see there, that's my 7610. That's a HF radio. Right below it with the two knobs and the white dials, that's an amplifier, an 800 watt amplifier.
Okay.
And then right below that with the yellow screen, that's the 2 meter, 70 centimeter radio.
So you could receive on the 2 meter?
Yeah, I could receive on the 2 meter into my laptop.
Okay.
And then send it out through HF if I wanted to.
And somebody would have to both be listening and know what they're hearing and have something to interpret it in order to understand what you're saying, right?
Yep. So if you use 20 meters, the standard frequency is 14.230.
Okay.
For 20 meter slow scan. They're all set in the band plan itself. Okay. So any ham is going to know the frequencies to listen to. That's you can just run it and set it up. Like I can run my radio all day plugged into the laptop and I'll get 100 pictures when I come home.
So let's just say then that you had a one-time use code sheet that you wanted to transmit. You could write it down on a piece of paper, take a picture, and then transmit it that way. And technically, now I know I'm completely fudging the rules here, but you're not sending an encrypted transmission at that point, right?
Technically, yes.
I mean, I know you are, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Hunter, I'm not sure if I understand this completely, but can you get all the images per circuit, as in West Coast pick received on the East Coast?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And go ahead. Yep.
They have it when the space station flies over. It's about 1,000-mile circle that it covers the U.S. So, like, if it's coming up the center of the or like coming overhead from northwest down to Florida,
okay,
it'll pretty much do the whole country.
And you get how long do you have to? It's not very long, is it? What is it?
8 minutes.
Okay.
8 minutes.
Cool.
They're flying over at 17,600 miles an hour or something like that.
And they don't even feel it.
No.
And Know Your Joe wants to know how much does a stack like that cost? Aaron, turn your speakers off for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, you're a decent HF radio, you're probably $1,000. Amplifier, you're probably $1,500. 2 meter, 70 centimeter, you can go anywhere from $200 to $2,000. So
Jake from Ravenwood says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money I have invested, but
Now, from what I've heard, if you find yourself an Elmer or find local ham clubs, a lot of times if you're a newbie, guys will throw you a bone and kind of give you a bit of a deal on some old gear sometimes. So
yep, that's how I got my 2 meter 70 centimeter rig.
That's cool.
It's a 20-year-old base station that I paid $300 for, and it was $1,500 brand new.
Man, but you know what? They're just happy to get somebody involved in the hobby, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, what do we want? Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the, okay. Yozik, do you know much about the vehicles that attacked Dalton and them?
No, I don't know much about the Russian vehicles. No,
I didn't either. Like one was on tracks and one was on tires. Is that what they?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it, obviously it sounded like, they're damn near impenetrable, but what were the round? I mean, I assume were they just regular armor piercing rounds that they were using to get through that, or was it something different, or did you catch that?
What they had loaded in the 50 cal was some armor piercing rounds. Yeah.
Was it Sabo or Sab? What do you
Sabo
call it?
rounds?
Sabo rounds. Okay.
Yeah.
And what are they? Just they're like a fully wrapped round, are they? Or
no, they have actually inside the center of the round is a penetrator. So the round goes, and when it hits speed and it hits the object, the penetrator ends up going through the metal of whatever the armor is, and then it kind of just bounces around on the inside, kind of like a 22 in a person's skull.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that was I thought it was kind of cool. And then Dalton's trying to hit him on the run, which I can't imagine would have been a very easy process.
No.
Because they did take one out, didn't they?
They think they did. It stopped firing at him. That was the one on tires, or the
tire one, I think.
Yeah, because then the track one's like, hey, surprise.
Yeah.
Anybody have any idea? Of course, this is going to show my ignorance again too, but not heat seeking, but it was like I guess it kind of was, wasn't it? Like some sort of, what do they run on? Like an infrared signal, or does anybody know?
Heat from exhaust pipe.
Is that what it?
I think they said something like that.
Yeah. I didn't realize they had something like that they could load into a tank, but of course that's the ignorance of me that didn't know. But
well, they have them that you can load on your shoulder and fire.
That's so crazy.
Like a bazooka type.
Yeah, it's a javelin, right?
Yeah, they have the stingers and javelins and a few different ones.
Do you guys remember the movie Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you remember what's her name? Radong, whatever the African American lady there, the one that she fires backwards by mistake. Do you remember that? And she ends up blowing up a building instead of shooting at. Yeah. Is that a type of thing like that, or was that?
Yeah, I mean, different shoulder fired tube launchers, different type of munitions that they can fire. Some have tracking, some are just point and shoot.
Okay. Hunter says too expensive for my taste. Yeah, I can imagine. And so the ending of the book, says, that's okay, Tim. The only heat-seeking things we have in Canada are dogs to the crotch. Yeah, that is true, brother. That is true. So the ending is Mel and Morgan standing around, and all of a sudden it's basically daylight. It's much brighter than it's supposed to be, right? Which is kind of funny. And I had a dream like that a couple of nights ago, and I'm thinking, fuck, I always hate nuclear dreams, the worst ones. But it must have been because I just finished the book. But she asked Morgan, she said, what was that? And Morgan says, well, I think it was the whatever the local base was called. Tampa, yeah. And she's like, well, do you think it was a nuke? And he's like, yeah, probably. And then Mel says, well, I wonder who fired it. And I love the ending line because Morgan says, does it really matter?
Yeah.
And that's why I thought it's such a perfect ending. I mean, the book itself was a bit of filler, but I almost wonder if maybe he had that line in, I don't know. That would have been the type of thing I'd have been like, oh, I got this great ending line for a book. Let's write a book around it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they get more into it next book. But yeah, that was I was waiting for that to happen. I couldn't remember what it was.
So in the spirit of following up with previous episodes, I went on to Goodreads and I found some of the best negative reviews. Those are always quite fun. So so this one here said Sarge is just rude all the time now with no redeeming qualities and apparently doesn't want to share his coffee even with Mel. The men roughhouse way too much. It's boring, getting old, and juvenile. Does anybody care to comment on that?
It's all true. But is that really a negative thing?
What's that, yo?
Is that really a negative thing, though? I mean,
one thing that you'll notice in these negative reviews is they're all pretty fucking obvious. Let's put it that way. Every one of them.
Yeah.
It's like, what did you expect from a book? And traditionally, when you have a series that goes 8, 10, 12 books, you guys ever heard the term Flanderization? So, Ned Flanders from The Simpsons. And basically, when you have a character who has very specific character traits, the longer the story goes or the longer a show runs for, the more exaggerated those character traits become. And that tends to be the same in books as well. And I mean, you kind of expect Sarge to act this way. So what the hell else did they expect, right? And Hunter said, not just the book, it's how it is.
You take a bunch of old friends that, hung out for years and years, and they get back together and they're going to act just the way they did back then. Mm-hmm. So you got these guys that served in the military together, had each other's backs. That's just how they are all the time, nonstop. And it's just how it is.
And it's got to get worse over time because everybody's got to one-up each other, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, I go home. So when I go back east, I might not get back there for 2 or 3 years. And guaranteed when I'm home, I will make one evening where I go and hang out with my best friend, Danny. And we'll sit around and we'll drink beer. And we will laugh and tell stories and act like absolute assholes all night long. And the longer the night goes, the louder we get. And we're just like 2 fucking teenagers again, right? And we might not see each other for 3-4 years, but when we do it, it is what it is, right? Like that's just who we are. That's our established relationship over 42 years now, Yeah. And Jake says Sarge is the character he is supposed to be. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one was pretty short and to the point, and I don't disagree completely, but they said not much really happened in this book. I was like, okay, not much of a review, but this one was pretty funny. It says this is the first angry American book I've read. I thought it was the first in the series. However, there were too many references to past events that were not explained. To avoid gaps and confusion in the storyline, I highly recommend reading the series in order.
Well, gee, that's strange.
And to give it a 3 out of 5 because you read it, I was like, how can you even rate a book when you haven't read the first 7 books in the series? I don't know. Angry American is one of my favorite authors, but he has fallen in love with one of his more unlikable characters, namely Sarge. I got tired of all his childish antics and foul language from Sarge. Was that supposed to add humor to the story? I don't mind foul language as part of a character, but is Sarge used as a way to spice up the story? Is the author indicating Sarge has dementia? Don't think I'll bother with the next book in this series. Where does the dementia thing come in? Like what? Because he's getting a little older and he fell asleep when they were out scoping things out. Like,
well, that was funny to hear Ted and them talk, about Sarge getting old.
I thought it was actually a pretty sweet moment, to be honest, as far as those jackasses go, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, he's sitting there. Oh, go ahead, Nate. Sorry, bud.
Anybody else catch the Jess and Ted too?
Holding hands and walking away at the end. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, because wait. Oh, well, who's the one with the dog?
Jess and Doc. Sorry.
Doc.
I was going to say that was Ronnie, not Ted.
Ronnie, yeah.
That's right.
Know Your Joe says, now I'm not sure if he's being funny or he's being serious. I don't want to make fun. So Know Your Joe says, I'm not familiar with the book. What's the story about? So I don't, if you're just new here and haven't read the book, it's, the start of the Going Home series. And if you're just being a smartass, then I'll recap anyway. But, Morgan gets away from home. How many miles? 100 miles from home.
250.
250. I get that wrong every fucking time I quote it.
All the time.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Thanks, Joe. He made me feel, he took me off the hook. He really doesn't know. So we're at book 8 of currently an 11-book series. An EMP went up, knocked out the power grid in the entire continental U.S. We don't really know much about Canada, do we? So not that there's much to know. So, and Morgan's 250 miles from home, and he has to walk home and make his way home. So it's a really interesting series. I recommend the audiobook because Duke Fontaine is he's a beast when it comes to reading. Like, his voices are incredible. But as Chris Dixon says, don't do what the previous reviewer did. Actually start with book 1. It's worth it. And you can also go back and follow along. We've done up 8 installments of this series so far. So, okay, the next one. I have read all 8 books in this series. Number 8 was a disappointment. Too much grab ass and not enough action. Bring on number 9 and get back to creating blockbusters.
It's not an action series.
No, we know there has to be fill in. I get it. And I do. I said this book was probably either the dullest or the second dullest of all the books. But Hunter says, fair enough. And this person isn't wrong. I just had to include it for the too much grab ass comment. That made me laugh.
Yeah, I mean, what was that? 3 was like the worst of them?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. We always look back, and there was one early on, I'm sure it was 3, because it was like the fill-in book before they liberated.
Yeah, it was 3 where they were at the river.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So Chris Dixon says, we're good in Canada. Igloos are like nature's EMP shield. There you go. That makes sense. And to be fair, Chris does like Morgan slapping Mel's ass. Oh,
yeah, a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
That is true. He talks. Yeah, that's true. I think that's just something that him and Chris and Mel do in real life, would be my guess, by seeing the way they interact in their live streams. So,
oh yeah.
We got one more here, I think. Let me see. One sec. Yeah, okay. I was hooked on this series, but it has become just banter between Sarge and the guys. No real solutions or improvements to the quote-unquote homestead. The towns are left in the same place as the last book, and Morgan yet again survives an ordeal that would have killed 10 other men. I'm done with this series. It's become a prepper type A personality wet dream. Not realistic or informative at all. The other books had recommendations on gear and survival bits. A shame, too, because he had a good deal going.
They got the power up and running. What the fuck does this guy want?
Oh, my God. I love. We do this in the... for those who like zombie shows, Becky and I have been doing the Last of Us, and I always find a negative review and we tear it apart because it's just fun. Because we can do that because that's our job, right? But I don't know. Like, what do you expect? I mean, how much more gear can he recommend? They've gone through 8 books previous talking about, or 7 books previous talking about what Morgan has. And I'm sure Chris caught shit sometimes for becoming a little bit too much like the New England Patriots, So for anybody who gets that inside joke. But
book 1 had a lot of that, but it hasn't been since then.
No, I don't think so. You're right. Like, book 1 definitely. Yeah. Clark says maybe this reviewer should go read Patriots. That, like I said, it
sucks.
Maybe someday I'll get what's his face on the show, and then he can tell me what he thinks of me. But I just Patriots just reads like an Amazon shopping list. That's all. It's as simple as that. Sorry, I said it. Let's move on. Hunter says, I want to know more about hygiene. How often do people wash their hair? I'm not sure if he's being a smart ass, if he's serious, because that could be interesting if the right person wrote it. So Yozik, have you read through this entire series before? Or are you?
No, this was my first time.
And have you read
further?
No. Okay. Now, John, of course, you've read this a few times, haven't you? Or have you?
I went back through book 8
Okay.
yesterday and today, but I have not gone on past this. I've stopped doing that because evidently I cannot remember where the one stops and the next one begins if I do that. So
I thought you were going to say, because you knew I'd ask you what your thoughts were coming up and you didn't want to be clouded. So
it'll be spoiler alerts, but I did want to ask,
sure, man.
Did anybody else catch Jack's show today where he was talking to the guy about biochar, and the guy actually talked about I can't remember who he said it was, but somebody was building a house, and when he had the guys plastering the basement, he had them add biochar to the plaster, and it turned his whole basement into like a Faraday room.
No shit.
Yeah, the biochar is evidently is a natural inhibitor to electromagnetic and radio wave stuff. And he didn't know that was going to happen. It was just one of those, oh, wow, look what I did.
We should get Porterhouse does quite a few videos, I think, on biochar. Maybe we'll have to hire him to do a test on that. That's interesting. I'd never heard that before.
I found it very interesting. I've heard of people, or they talk about people adding it to paint too, and I don't know if you could get the same effect, or how much that you would have to add to paint or plaster or any of that to get that effect. But it is absolutely intriguing to me to think about that.
I just love any of those alternative building technologies. I've been hot and horny for styroconcrete or foamcrete lately, ever since I had Brian Norton on the show and he got talking about it. So there's a guy who has a YouTube channel all about it. Can't think of his name right now, but if anybody happens to know him or have a way to connect with me, I'd love to have him on the show. I left him a comment in his YouTube, but that's a hit or miss whether anybody ever sees it, right? So there was a couple other ones here. Hunter says it's got to come up. He says, I have 3 females and they all use 7 bottles of wash. Yeah, I bet Nate knows a little bit about that. You've got 3 ladies in the house, don't you?
Yep. I got I have 7 or 8 bottles sitting on the sink upstairs. So
Clark is talking about Patriots, I'm going to believe. And I'm sure he said that was the first prepper book I ever read and didn't realize how bad it was until I read others. Have you ever read Patriots, Yozik?
No.
No, it's okay. Well, don't bother.
Yeah.
Whatever. It is what it is. I got to stop because everybody has their own opinions, but I'm sorry. It just didn't do it for me. I tried. I didn't quite make it all the way through the first book. So, and
I'm not into shopping lists.
No, it's tough. It's tough. And then, anyway, yeah, I won't get it. There's a bunch of religious stuff in it too, which is fine if that's what you're into, but you add religion to Amazon shopping lists and the whole thing just got, it's just too much for me. So
it was like reading through the book of Numbers. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And Yosemite beget Jeshua, and Jeshua beget, oh yeah. Yeah. Trust me. I've been there and done that when I was a kid. So I wanted to share this because, Chris, you're right. He said, book 1 almost lost me with the gear, and I'm glad I stuck with it. Because I remember when he first started in the series, Chris messaged me, and he said, does it get better than book 1? Because book 1's a great story, but it does fall in the trap of legitimate prepper porn, this night vision goggles and this, that kind of stuff. So, but it does. If you stick with it, I think this story pays off hugely.
Well, book 1 was just written, a few paragraphs at a time on a forum?
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And it was written for a prepper forum. So there was probably some, flexing of the muscles there. Like, hey, I know cool this. Yeah, exactly. Because he knew his audience, right? This is who it is. And
yeah.
Haas says Amazon has books 6 through 10 for Kindle for between $5 and $6 a piece. So we've been just about an hour and a half, boys. I'm going to start with Yozik since you're new here. And you're not new to our community, but John doesn't want to make a prediction. He dropped off, the bugger. I pissed him off because I said I was going to start with Yozik. So do you want to make your predictions as to where book 9 goes?
Well, I definitely see them working more towards the relationships between the different characters. And, I mean, it's not going to be just them in their little small town for much longer, with the Russians moving in and them, taking out a military base. So who knows?
Kind of interesting. Do you think they'll deal with any of the literal and metaphorical fallout from the attack on Tampa?
Well, I mean, they're not that far. I mean, Florida's not that wide to start with. So...
Yeah, and Hunter says dealing with fallout kind of far away. I mean, but it all depends on, how strong of a bomb it was, how high the mushroom cloud went in, in the sky, how hard the winds blow and the jet stream, a whole bunch of shit, So, and the storm, yeah. How about you, John? What are your predictions for book 8?
You mean book 9?
Sorry, yes, I do mean book. Yeah, you'd be pretty spot on for predictions for book 8, wouldn't you?
I was like, yeah, I'm going to be pretty good at this one. Oh, man, I hate trying to make predictions, but honestly, I can't. Didn't they say roughly how far they were away from that base? It seems like I remember them talking about distance to that base roughly, and
of course the number 200 sits in my mind, but
yeah, well, I can look it up.
Yeah, coast to coast, Florida they're not much more than a 3 or 4 hour drive to go across from one to because Daytona to Orlando was, what was that, 2 hours, 2.5 hours when I drove that last spring?
Yeah, that's about right.
I was gonna say
Orlando halfway.
It's not more than like 100 miles. No, Orlando's closer to the West Coast.
Yeah, okay.
When I was like 12, 13 years old, I actually lived about 40 miles west of Orlando, and I was like right in the middle of the state. And I was just about as an equal distance from Tampa. I was a little north of Tampa and north of Orlando, but I was pretty close to the area where they're at. So they couldn't have been. I wouldn't have thought 50 miles. Is it 150? They're that far. So
115.
Man, 115.
Oh, that's within. I would think. I know I've heard Dave Jones, their NBC guy, talk about how far. I think that would be on the, depending on the way the wind blows and things. I'm thinking that's on the outer edge of whether fallout would make it or not. I believe. I could be wrong about that.
I thought I remembered when you had him on, it was dependent on the wind speeds. Like I thought he said, like if the wind speed was 20 mile an hour, and if you was outside of 20 miles, pretty much you were safe.
That might have been it. I'll have to. If I'd have thought of it, I could have messaged him on Signal and asked him tonight. But yeah, I think you're right. I think they're probably okay, but God damn, I wouldn't want to take the chance if I could help it. So,
well, if they have that storm coming in from the ocean going across to the coast, then they might be fine.
Well, that storm already hit.
It did already hit, didn't it?
Yeah.
I know part of it did. I didn't know if the whole thing had.
Because the rain would knock that shit out quick. You know what I mean? Like,
well, not only that, if the storm had come through and they were on the south end of the storm, then the prevailing winds would be pushing that stuff away from them too. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever see Jericho? Any of you ever watch the TV show Jericho?
Yeah.
Nope.
You guys are missing out. Probably the best post-apocalyptic regular free-to-air cable TV show ever. But they had that where they were in Kansas and they were scared the fallout was coming and they had a big rainstorm. They thought it was going to wash it down. It never hit them, but that's what was reminded of. The rain knocks it out pretty quick. So
right. I can say one prediction. I think that they're going to have more heat from that little bit of back and forth they had with the Russians in the MRAPs and all that. I can. That's that. There's going to be some revenge coming from that, I think.
I think we meet a pretty interesting character, don't we, Nate, in the next book that may or may not be from, a certain Russian country, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't but it's just
I remember him. Yep. All
yeah.
right.
Okay, you guys will enjoy that. So Chris threw his prediction up here. He said, "I think DHS is still around, and the bonds between them and Livingston Sheffield will be put to a test in a big way." I don't know. What? Any of you guys got any opinions on that, John or Yo?
Yeah, I didn't like how it ended with the DHS and that group. It seemed like it was way too easy, and they didn't really come up with any of the other main characters from the DHS other than the main guy. You know, they never came up with the other torturer guy, the
Yakamoto.
or any of those other guys.
Well, that's what. Yeah, I couldn't remember if they had dispatched Mr. What did he say he sounded like? Was it Zulu off of the original Star Trek or Chekhov? Chekhov, wasn't it?
It would have been
Niagata.
Yeah, Niagata.
Yeah, Niagata. That's what it was.
Who did they say? It was somebody from Star. Remember?
It would have been Sulu because.
Was it Sulu? Okay, I couldn't remember, but yeah.
Because Chekhov was Russian and Sulu was Asian.
Yeah, because he makes a joke because he was laughing, and then what's his face gives him a slap or something. He asked him what was so funny, and he didn't want to share. But I that one stuck with me. I always like that. Those little tiny, even though he still got his ass handed to him, those little wins, were fun. But so here's one more. Let's see if we can get one more prediction out of everybody. Will we see Book 12 in 2023? What do you think, Nate?
I would think so.
Yo?
I don't know. I haven't really followed how any of the other ones have come out, but if not this year, hopefully next year. Maybe give us a 6-month break so we can do another series and then come back to it. That'd be nice.
I was thinking because 11 is out now, and 12. Am I wrong? Do you remember, Nate, when he was on the show? I'm pretty sure he said 12 was supposed to come out like last August, wasn't it?
I think he said 11 was coming out.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, you're right. Because 11 did come out about that time, didn't it? Or maybe a little before.
And he said he's got 20, at least 20 planned.
Yeah. What do you think, John? Will we see 12 in 2023?
It's got 4 months.
He's got
for us to get to it before we hit the end of the series.
Oh, good point. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Hunter said 12 was supposed to. Yeah, I think he's run into a few. Whatever. I mean, it's got to be tough when you have people waiting on you, and then you have people who all along have bitched about the writing quality or the lack of editing or whatever,
Kind of makes me think of the Phil from MOF podcast. Yep. He put out that book, and it's been years people have been asking him for a sequel to that book that he wrote. So
I remember hearing him. We've talked a few times, but I know he's mentioned. I thought he'd mentioned he was thinking about making a sequel, but I think that's about as far as he's ever got. He
started writing it several times. I listened to his podcast, all of his podcasts. Matter of fact, I found him on the Reloading podcast. He used to be part of the panel on the Reloading podcast, and then I found out he was doing this MOF podcast. I started it up. Then I started listening to that, and that's been, I don't know how many years ago now, but I'm trying to remember what the name of the book he wrote was now. But I mean, I've given him crap about hey, when you gonna put that book out?
They've got a young kid now, and I had him and his wife on the show maybe about a year and a half ago, and they talked about their experience with the hurricane. It was a pretty riveting story because they had it rough for a few days. And Cold War Prepper says that in book 4, the camp commander says that Niagata reminds him of Sulu. Okay, cool. Thanks. Because I knew it stuck with me, but I couldn't remember. So any closing thoughts from anybody regarding the book? Anybody? Yozik, do you have anything that you want to plug?
Not at this time. I'll have another podcast coming out pretty soon with Serenity Minded. Got a couple things about getting moving and pickling garlic, hopefully within the next week.
So how do they find you then? You said you got nothing to plug, but you have a podcast.
Serenity Minded. I'm on Fountain, most of your podcast players. A little bit on YouTube. I got to work on that a little bit. I haven't touched it much in the last couple months. It's mainly some self-help stuff, handyman stuff, just things going on in my personal journey in my life right now.
Nice. And John, Telegram, right, brother?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep. and Nate, what about you, the bearded chick?
Yep, I'm the bearded half of Two Chicks Homestead.
Never gets old. Sorry.
I know. We do. We're doing a every other week podcast right now.
Okay.
Taking a little bit of a break. But you can find us on all the major podcast players, Fountain, Apple, anything you guys want. It's twochickshomestead.com, and that'll be our website. And look forward to it. We just put an episode out on eggs.
Eggs. Okay.
Yep. Like our
the new currency of the post-apocalypse.
Yeah, the new currency of the post-apocalypse, and why you're behind the eight ball if you're buying eggs right now.
Nice.
Or buying chickens right now.
Oh, yeah.
What do they say? The second best time to plant a tree is today, right?
Yep.
So, which still sucks, but it is what it is. So, cool. Well, thank you, fellers. This was fun. We will. Well, I guess we're doing it on Thursdays now. It seems to be the way we get a better turnout. So, I thought that was my guys for a second. No worries. But yeah, we will.
Sorry about that. That was mine. Y'all have a good.
Yeah, don't worry about it, John. Yeah, man, you can hear mine all the time. But yeah, so we'll be the first. What's next month? March. So we'll be the first Thursday in March, and we'll be back and we'll do it again. And don't forget Thursday. So next Thursday, I've got Cam and Colby from the Casual Preppers podcast coming on to talk about the movie Signs. And then next Saturday, we're doing our next workshop watch party. We're going to sit around and we're going to laugh at Bill Murray and all his antics in the Groundhog Day film. So,
which is today.
Yes, I know. And then tomorrow and the day after and the day after. I just couldn't make it work. We had to get this. This was more important. So I'm like, let's get the book show in and then we'll do this. So cool. All right, guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week. Everybody do the freeze.